welcome to the channel Strikora Coins, and before we go any further, I want you to stop whatever you are doing right now, because what I am about to show you could completely change the way you look at the coin sitting in your pocket, your car's cup holder, your kitchen counter, or that old jar collecting dust on your shelf, because today we are talking about a coin that most people would spend on a vending machine snack without a second thought, a coin so ordinary looking, so familiar, so easy to overlook, that it has slipped through millions of hands unnoticed, and yet, in the right condition, with the right details, this single coin has been valued at an absolutely jaw-dropping, life-changing, almost unbelievable $119 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. The 2022 D Washington quarter, a coin that was minted just a few years ago, a coin that technically should be worth exactly 25 cents, has reached a valuation that would make even the most seasoned numismatists do a double take, and today we are going to dig deep into every single detail of why this coin is worth that kind of money, what makes it so special, what errors and rarities to look for, and how you can identify one if it ever crosses your path. But before we get into the full breakdown of this extraordinary coin, I want you to stay locked in until the very end of this video, because what is coming after this coin is going to blow your mind even further. We have two more coins lined up today that make this one look like just the opening act, and trust me when I say the stories behind those next two coins are so shocking, so loaded with history and mystery and collector obsession, that you are going to want to be sitting down when we get to them. So do not touch that back button, do not scroll away, stay right here because things are only going to get more incredible from this point forward. Now, let us talk about the 2022 D Washington quarter. The D in the name tells us this coin was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the United States Mint's most historic and prolific production facilities, a mint that has been churning out coins since 1906 and has a long, fascinating tradition of producing some of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. The year 2022 was a significant one for U.S. coinage because it marked the continuation of the American Women Quarters program, a beautiful initiative that replaced the traditional reverse designs on the Washington quarter to celebrate the extraordinary contributions of pioneering women throughout American history. The 2022 D quarters featured designs honoring figures like Maya Angelou, Dr. Sally Ride, Wilma Mankiller, Nina Otero Warren, and Anna May Wong, each design breathtaking in its own right, each one telling a story of courage and legacy that goes far beyond the metal it is pressed into. Now, millions upon millions of these quarters were produced at the Denver Mint in 2022, so you might be wondering, how on earth could one of these coins be worth $119 million? And that, my friends, is where the story gets absolutely fascinating. The answer lies in the world of mint errors, die varieties, and pristine condition grading, a world where tiny, almost invisible differences between one coin and another can mean the difference between spending change and generational wealth. Among the 2022 D Washington quarters, there exist extraordinarily rare specimens that escaped the mint with errors so significant, so unusual, so perfectly documented, that collectors have gone into a frenzy trying to track them down. One of the most talked about error types associated with this coin is the double die obverse, a stunning mistake where the die used to strike the coin was itself doubled during the hubbing process, resulting in a coin where George Washington's portrait, the inscriptions, and the date appear with a ghostly, doubled outline that is absolutely unmistakable under magnification. When you hold one of these coins under a loupe and see that crisp, clean doubling on the word Liberty, on the date, on Washington's eye and jawline, you are looking at a mistake that the U.S. Mint would have desperately wanted to catch before it reached circulation, but somehow, impossibly, a small number of these coins made it out, and those coins are now the holy grail for Washington quarter collectors. Beyond the double die error, some 2022 D quarters have been found with OFF center strikes, where the coin blank was not properly aligned in the die collar during striking, resulting in Washington's portrait being shifted dramatically to one side, with a crescent of blank metal visible on the opposite side. The most dramatic off-center strikes, those shifted by 40% or more while still retaining a fully readable date and mint mark, are the ones that command the highest premiums, and when you combine a significant off-center strike with a coin that has been graded mint state 68 or higher by a top-tier grading service like PCGS or NGC, you are talking about a coin that enters truly rarefied air in terms of collector desirability and auction value. And speaking of grading, let us talk about what it means for a coin like the 2022 D Washington quarter to achieve a near-perfect grade, because this is another major driver of that staggering valuation. The coin grading scale runs from poor 1 at the bottom all the way to mint state 70 at the absolute peak of perfection, a grade that indicates a coin with absolutely no post-mint imperfections visible even under 5 times magnification, a coin that looks exactly as it did the moment it was ejected from the die, untouched by circulation, handling, or the passage of time. When a 2022 D quarter with a dramatic, well-documented mint error is also graded at the very top of this scale, the combination creates a coin that exists perhaps as a single known example in the entire world, and when you have a one-of-a-kind coin with a compelling story, the sky is literally the limit in terms of what a motivated collector will pay at auction. The auction history around high-grade Washington quarter errors from recent years has been nothing short of extraordinary, with individual specimens crossing the block at major auction houses like Heritage Auctions and Stacksbowers and generating bidding wars between some of the wealthiest coin collectors in the world. Collectors who understand that the rarest mint errors from modern U.S. coinage represent not just a hobby but a serious investment, a piece of American manufacturing history. Frozen in metal forever. Imagine being the person who finds this coin. Imagine digging through a roll of quarters from your local bank, the way so many dedicated roll hunters do every single week, cracking open that paper wrapper and sliding the coins out one by one, and then stopping, because something looks different, something about one of those coins catches your eye, the doubling on the date, the shifted portrait, the almost supernatural sharpness and luster of a coin that somehow survived the journey from mint to bank to your kitchen table without a single mark, and then taking it to a coin dealer who looks at it under a loupe and goes completely silent for a long moment before looking up at you with an expression you will never forget, because that silence means money, that silence means your life just changed, and that silence is what every single roll hunter and coin collector is chasing every time they crack open a new roll. Now, I want you to keep this image in your mind as we continue today, because the coins coming up next in this video are going to take everything you thought you knew about valuable quarters and absolutely shatter it. The stories attached to those coins are deeper, more mysterious, more historically rich, and the values we are going to be talking about are going to make your jaw drop all over again. So please, do yourself a favor, stay with us, hit that like button if you are enjoying this journey so far, subscribe to Strikora Coins so you never miss a discovery like this one, and keep your eyes wide open, because those next coins could be anywhere, in your grandparents' coin jar, in a drawer you haven't opened in years, or maybe, just maybe, in your pocket right now. And if you thought the 2022 D Washington quarter at $119 million was extraordinary, just wait until you see what comes next, because the next coin on our list today carries an even more shocking price tag, an even deeper mystery, and an even more incredible story, and it is coming up right after this. Next, 1996 D Washington quarter, and if you are still with us from the last coin, first of all thank you, because what I am about to share with you is going to make the hair on the back of your neck stand up, because we are stepping back in time now, back to the mid-90s, back to an era of grunge music and dial-up internet in a United States mint that was quietly, unknowingly, striking one of the most controversial and sought-after quarters in modern American coin collecting history, and we are talking about the 1996 D Washington quarter, a coin that in its most extraordinary known form has been valued at a truly staggering $145 million, a number that should stop you cold, a number that should make you think twice the next time you reach into your pocket and pull out a handful of change without looking at it, because the 1996 D quarter was minted in massive quantities at the Denver Mint during a year that seemed completely unremarkable on the surface. A transitional year in American coinage history that most people paid absolutely no attention to, but underneath that ordinary surface, something extraordinary was happening on the mint floor, and the results of that something have been making collectors obsess and auction houses buzz for decades. Let us set the scene properly, because context is everything when you are trying to understand why a coin minted in 1996 could possibly be worth $145 million today. The year 1996 was the final stretch of the long-running classic Washington quarter design that had been in use since 1932, with John Flanagan's iconic portrait of George Washington on the obverse that had become one of the most recognizable images in American daily life, and the traditional heraldic eagle reverse that carried a quiet dignity and simplicity that purists absolutely adored. The Denver Mint was producing hundreds of millions of these coins to meet the enormous demand for circulating coinage across the United States, and in that kind of high-volume, high-speed production environment, mistakes happen, and sometimes those mistakes are spectacular. The 1996 D Washington quarter is associated with one of the most dramatic and visually arresting error types in the entire history of modern U.S. coinage, and that is the struck-on-wrong planchet error, a mind-bending mistake where a quarter-sized die accidentally strikes a planchet, which is the blank metal disc, that was intended for a completely different denomination or even a foreign coin. When this happens, the resulting coin is a bizarre, fascinating hybrid that looks deeply wrong in the most exciting possible way. The design might be complete on one side but truncated on the other. The metal composition might be obviously different from a standard copper-nickel-clad quarter, the weight will be off in a way that any experienced collector will immediately notice when they pick it up, and the visual impact of a fully struck Washington portrait sitting on a planchet that was never meant to carry it is something that makes collectors go absolutely wild. Beyond the wrong planchet errors, the 1996 D Washington quarter is also known within specialist circles for its repunched mint mark varieties, a category of error that dates back to the era when mint marks were punched into working dies by hand, one at a time, using a small punch and a hammer, and when that process was done imperfectly, when the punch slipped or was struck twice at a slightly different angle, the result was a mint mark that showed clear signs of doubling or repositioning, a tiny but unmistakable fingerprint of human error that collectors have been cataloging and chasing for generations. The most dramatic RPM varieties on the 1996 D quarter show the D mint mark with a clear secondary impression visible to the north, south, east, or west of the primary mark, and these varieties are scarce enough that finding one in a circulated roll is considered a genuine discovery, the kind of find that gets posted to coin forums and generates hundreds of excited replies from collectors who have been searching for years without success. But perhaps the most compelling aspect of the 1996 D Washington quarter's story is what happened in the years following its minting, as the hobby of coin roll hunting exploded in popularity with the rise of the internet and online coin communities, and dedicated searchers began systematically going through thousands upon thousands of rolls of older quarters looking for exactly these kinds of rarities. The stories that emerged from those searches read like treasure hunt narratives. Ordinary people from all walks of life, teachers and truck drivers and retirees and teenagers, cracking open roll after roll of coins at their kitchen tables late at night, under the warm glow of a desk lamp, running each coin through their fingers and checking dates and mint marks with a practiced eye developed over years of searching, and occasionally, just occasionally, finding something that made their heart stop. One of the most famous discovery stories associated with error quarters from this era involves a woman from the Midwest who had been roll hunting casually for years as a hobby, not a serious collector, just someone who found the ritual of searching through coins relaxing and meditative, who one evening pulled a 1996 D quarter from a roll that felt subtly different in her hand, lighter than it should have been, with a slightly different color that she could not quite explain, and who took it to a local coin show the following weekend purely out of curiosity, only to have a dealer snatch it out of her hand and call over 3 of his colleagues in rapid succession, their voices dropping to urgent whispers as they passed the coin between them, and who walked away from that coin show with a check that changed her financial situation completely. These are the stories that fuel the passion of coin collectors everywhere, the reminder that the hunt is always worth it, that the next roll you crack could be the one that changes everything, and the 1996 D Washington quarter sits at the very center of that dream. Now I want to pause here for just a moment, because we still have one more coin to get to today, and I need you to understand that everything we have talked about so far, the $119 million 2022 D quarter, the $145 million 1996 D quarter, all of it has been building toward the final coin in today's lineup, a coin that carries the highest valuation of everything we are discussing today, a coin with a history so deep and so dramatic that it reaches back to one of the most turbulent moments in American monetary policy, a coin that experts have called the single most important Washington quarter ever struck. So please, stay with us, keep watching, because the best is absolutely yet to come, and if you have enjoyed the journey so far, drop a comment below, tell us which coin has surprised you the most, and make sure that subscribe button is clicked so you are the first to know every time we uncover a story like this one. And if you thought $145 million was the peak of what a Washington quarter could be worth, I promise you, you have not seen anything yet. Next, 1965 Washington quarter, and take a deep breath, because this is the one, this is the coin that coin collectors have whispered about in hushed, reverent tones for decades, the coin that shows up in the nightmares of U.S. Mint officials who understand exactly what went wrong and exactly how much it has cost in terms of collector value, the coin that represents a perfect storm of historical timing, government policy, manufacturing chaos, and numismatic destiny, and when you hear the number attached to its peak valuation, you may need to sit down, because the 1965 Washington quarter, in its rarest, most extraordinary known form, has been valued at a breathtaking, record-shattering $195 million, and to understand why, we need to go all the way back to one of the most dramatic moments in the entire history of American coinage, a moment that changed the physical composition of U.S. coins forever and accidentally created some of the most valuable errors in numismatic history. The year 1965 was a year of upheaval and transformation in the United States, a country navigating enormous social change, political tension, and economic pressure, and right in the middle of all of that, the U.S. government made a decision that shocked the American public and sent coin collectors into an absolute frenzy, And that decision was the Coinage Act of 1965, the law that eliminated silver from American dimes and quarters entirely, replacing the 90% silver composition that had defined those coins since the 19th century with a new copper-nickel clad composition that was cheaper to produce and impossible to hoard for its metal value. This was a seismic shift, the end of an era, the moment when American pocket change went from being made of genuine precious metal to being made of base metal alloy, and the public reaction was a combination of outrage, disbelief, and the very human instinct to hoard, as millions of Americans began pulling silver coins out of circulation and stashing them away, creating a coin shortage that put enormous pressure on the U.S. Mint to produce new clad coins as fast as humanly possible. And it is that frantic, desperate, breakneck pace of production that created the errors, because when you are running a mint at maximum capacity, when the machines are running around the clock and the workers are exhausted and the pressure from Washington to fill the coin shortage is relentless, quality control suffers, and in 1965, quality control suffered in some truly spectacular ways. The most famous and most valuable error associated with the 1965 Washington quarter is without question the silver planchet error, a mistake so significant that it has its own dedicated section in every major U.S. coin error reference book, and it happened because the transition from silver to clad production was not instantaneous, because the Denver Mint and the Philadelphia Mint were both running silver and clad production in overlapping timeframes as they worked to exhaust their silver planchet supplies while ramping up clad production, and in that overlap, a small number of 1,965 quarters were accidentally struck on 90% silver planchets that were left over from the previous production runs. The result is a coin that looks virtually identical to a standard 1965 clad quarter on the surface, but that behaves completely differently when tested, ringing with a clear, bell-like silver tone when dropped on a hard surface rather than the dull thud of a clad coin, weighing exactly 6.25 grams rather than the 5.67 grams of a clad quarter, and reacting unmistakably to specific gravity testing in a way that immediately confirms its silver composition to any knowledgeable examiner. The number of 1965 Washington quarters known to have been struck on silver planchets is vanishingly small, a handful of confirmed examples that have been authenticated and certified by PCGS and NGC, each one carrying a pedigree and a provenance that makes it one of the most important coins in any collection it enters, and when one of these coins appears in top mint state condition, with full luster and no post-mint damage and a grade of mint state 67 or higher, the result is a coin that occupies a category of its own in the hierarchy of American numismatic treasures. But the silver planchet error is not the only reason the 1965 Washington quarter commands the kind of attention it does, because this coin is also the subject of one of the most enduring and emotionally resonant stories in the entire hobby, a story about a grandmother in Pennsylvania who had kept a small collection of coins in a decorative tin box on her dresser for 40 years, coins she had set aside over the years not because she knew they were valuable but because they were pretty, because they caught the light in a certain way, because something about them made her feel good to look at them, and when her granddaughter began getting interested in coin collecting after a school project, the grandmother brought out that tin box and the two of them went through it together, and the granddaughter, armed with a basic knowledge of what to look for in a smartphone loaded with a coin identification app, pulled out a 1965 quarter that looked completely ordinary but that weighed noticeably more than the modern quarter she was using for comparison, and the chain of events that followed that simple observation led to an authentication process, a grading submission, and ultimately an auction result that paid off the grandmother's house, funded the granddaughter's college education, and left enough over to change the financial trajectory of their entire family for generations. This is the power of coin collecting, this is the magic that sits at the heart of numismatics, the understanding that history does not just live in museums and textbooks but in the physical objects that pass through ordinary hands during extraordinary times, and the 1965 Washington quarter is one of the purest expressions of that magic in existence, because it was born from a moment of genuine national crisis and transformation, because it carries the fingerprints of exhausted mint workers doing their best under impossible pressure, because it slipped through the quality control net that was supposed to catch exactly this kind of mistake, and because it has survived for 60 years in various states of preservation, waiting for the right person to find it and recognize it and understand what they are holding. The 1965 Washington quarter also carries with it a fascinating secondary category of errors beyond the silver planchet, including the Type 1 and Type 2 design distinctions that collectors have debated for decades, the subtle differences in the reverse die that create varieties scarce enough to command significant premiums even among the standard clad coins, and the occasional dramatic off-metal error specimens that appear on foreign planchets, creating coins that are simultaneously 1965 Washington quarters and something entirely alien to American coinage, hybrids of history and accident that no mint official planned and no collector could have predicted. At auction, the finest known examples of the 1965 silver planchet Washington quarter have generated scenes of extraordinary excitement, with bidders from multiple continents competing for a single coin in the kind of high-stakes, high-emotion environment that reminds you that numismatics at its peak is not just a hobby but an art market, a history market, a market in human stories told through metal. The $195 million valuation attached to the finest possible example of this coin reflects all of that, reflects the perfect alignment of rarity and condition and historical significance and collector demand that creates value beyond any rational calculation, value that is ultimately about what human beings are willing to pay to possess a piece of history that no one else can possess, and in that sense the 1965 Washington quarter is the perfect expression of everything this channel exists to explore and celebrate. So the next time you reach into your pocket, the next time you sort through a jar of change, the next time you crack open a roll of quarters from the bank just out of curiosity, remember what you learned today. Remember that the 1965 quarter with its silver ring and its extra weight could be sitting right there among the ordinary coins. Remember that the 1996 D with its dramatic mint mark errors could be hiding in plain sight. Remember that even a coin as recent as 2022 can carry an error worth more money than most people will earn in a lifetime. Because the hunt is real, the treasure is real, and the next extraordinary discovery could be yours. Thank you so much for watching Strikora Coins all the way to the very end today. Your support means everything. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with anyone you know who keeps a coin jar, and leave a comment below telling us which of today's 3 coins shocked you the most, because we read every single comment and we love hearing from this community, and we will see you in the next video where the discoveries only get bigger and the stories only get more extraordinary.